If I'm being honest, yes, I am gloating a little bit because everyone in my Discord server has been going crazy over the whole eggs thing. They've sort of been on the Democratic bandwagon of caring about egg prices now that Trump is president. Now, I mean, to give them credit, right? Decreasing egg prices is something that Donald Trump has promised. So it does make sense to be like, hey, you promised this thing. Go ahead and give us this thing. Now, Donald Trump certainly didn't help things by saying that he would decrease egg prices in a single day. But at the end of the day, the job is getting done. We've got this headline here from CNBC, which says wholesale egg prices have plunged. Analyst says shoppers may soon see some relief. Now, I will say that I don't know that Trump necessarily deserves the credit for this because these things are just natural. And, you know, there was the bird flu that went and had a very negative effect on the hen population, the hens that were laying the eggs. And then Joe Biden had a bunch of hens culled. Now, a lot of folks on the right are going to say, oh, it's Joe Biden's fault that we're having an egg shortage because he had a bunch of chickens killed. Well, I think it's pretty normal, right? You don't want the bird flu just spreading across, you know, all these birds. And if there's no other way to treat or contain the sickness, then yeah, you know, you can kill a bunch of the birds and then the bird flu doesn't spread as prolifically. So I don't really fault the Biden administration for doing what he did in the way that he did, just because it has been demonstrated to me that that's sort of outside of the realm of what you're supposed to do in these sorts of scenarios. But either way, right, it looks like things are getting back into balance, right? I mean, this headline here says that the prices have plunged. We could even read deeper into the article here. Wholesale egg prices have fallen significantly in recent weeks, a dynamic that may soon offer relief for consumers shell-shocked, by record high prices at the grocery store this year. Experts quickly how quickly and how much egg retail prices will fall is unclear, however, experts said. Wholesale prices dropped to $4.83 per dozen on Friday, a 44% decline from their peak of $8.58 per dozen on February 28th, according to Expana, which tracks agricultural commodity prices. The pullback comes amid a reprieve from major bird flu outbreaks so far in March and weaker consumer demand, which have helped the nation's egg supply to start recovering, according to a U.S. Department of Agriculture market analysis published on Friday. Prices have plunged, says Karen Rispoli, an egg market analyst and managing editor at Expana. Market dynamics are also putting extreme pressure on wholesale prices to fall further, Rizzoli wrote an email. Yeah, so there's one thing that I've been hearing across the internet, even in real life as well. Some people have been saying, well, you know, if eggs are too expensive, I'm going to go buy something else. Now, I will say that this is the most heartening thing to hear as someone who's not a globalist, right? As someone who doesn't want to, you know, eat the bugs, right? I'm not like, oh, let's just find alternate sources of protein. But this is a fact, right? And, you know, for people who have families and whatnot, they can't necessarily afford to sort of like hold the line and just buy eggs at all of these higher prices. They might go to something else for their sources of protein, or unfortunately, they just might decide to just get fewer eggs and have less protein, or forego eggs altogether and not replace it with anything else. But you know, such is the case, right? When prices get too high, that's just gonna price people out of that market, and they're just not gonna buy eggs anymore. But thankfully, it is good to see some pressures decreasing the price of eggs, and also, of course, the hen population recuperating, which is, of course, going to help the supply of eggs long term. So retail egg prices hit record high. Consumers paid $5.90 for a dozen large grade A eggs on average in February, a record high, according to U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics data. Retail prices have blown past their prior record, $4.82 per dozen in January of 2023, and have nearly doubled from a year ago. That is pretty bad. That's pretty bad. Prices have surged amid a deadly outbreak of bird flu in the U.S., which has killed millions of egg-laying chickens and crimped, that's an interesting word. I don't think I've heard that word in quite a while. Crimped egg supply, according to agricultural economists and market experts. The U.S. Department of Justice also opened an antitrust investigation into the pricing and supply practices of major producers. That's news to me, actually. I did not know that bit there. However, bird flu outbreaks seem to have tapered off in March, at least for now. Slowing bird flu outbreaks are leading to improved supply availability, and wholesale market prices have responded with sharp declines over the past week. Now, this is interesting because I actually very recently reacted to an article from CNET that had some quotes from some experts who were saying, these prices are going to be going down soon. Actually, hold on. Let me see if I can pull this up. Were they saying like the end of March or end of April? I want to say I can't remember for the life of me. Oh yeah. So here's the interesting part right here. Will usher the prices lower. I generally agree with that as well. The USDA has projected egg prices will start to return to normal by April, according to its monthly World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates report in the form of PDF. The price will drop back down to $2.50 per dozen in the second quarter of 2025 and down to $2.10 in the third quarter. So that is interesting because we're nearing April. And it seems like we're actually recovering ahead of schedule. I was sort of like hedging my bets because like last week I was looking at the prices. I noticed that the prices seem to be going down, at least for me just eyeballing it. And I was like, oh, interesting. It looks like we're actually ahead of schedule because it's mid-March and prices are already starting to go down. But yeah, here now we're seeing experts kind of acknowledge, yes, egg prices are going down ahead of schedule. It says here, consumers dissuaded by high prices and purchase restrictions imposed. But yeah, that basically is rephrasing stuff that was said earlier. Yeah, many of these things have actually been said in the first half of this article. It basically seems like it repeated itself using AI. I'm not accusing Greg Iacurki, I don't know how you say that, of using AI, but it seems like this article basically repeats itself halfway through. It's an interesting article though, and it's nice to see that financial experts, the people who are actually watching the markets and professionals in that arena, are starting to acknowledge that yes, egg prices are starting to go down. Now, of course, I think like I said earlier, we probably can just attribute this more to the natural progression of things, right? You cull the diseased chickens, and then the population starts growing. And then, of course, with the greater supply, the price goes down. It's just natural and normal. I think that Donald Trump really should not have gone and talked about decreasing the price of eggs because that's not the type of thing that's under his purview. Now, when it comes to gas prices, right? Donald Trump's efforts and where he decides to lean and use his influences there, that has more control over the price of gas. We saw Joe Biden's decisions have massive effects on the gas prices for good and for ill. So I think that Donald Trump just made the wrong decision there by giving a promise on egg prices when he didn't need to, right? And there are other things that Donald Trump can do and is going to do that will help the economy in general. I know that he's got the whole tariffs thing going on, but beyond that, there are policies that Donald Trump is doing or is going to do that are going to help the economy in general. So he shouldn't have said what he said about the egg prices because that's not under his purview. He should be focusing on the economy, at a broader level when he's talking about what he's going to do and stuff. So I think it's kind of unfortunate, right? Like presidents should be making promises like that if they can't keep them. That was a big mistake on his part.